What's up, everyone? Philly Insider here. What a win. What a win, Drew. Good to see them fight back tonight. And especially after yesterday, they lose in extra innings. They come back today and they take care of business in extra innings. And
Yep.
a lot of big plays at the end of that game, Drew. Some help from the umpire, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to get your thoughts on not only just a comeback win, but a comeback win against the New York Mets. Doesn't get better than that, Drew.
Yeah. Anytime you can come back against the Mets or even beat the Mets in general is just such a huge mental win. Not even just like in the win column. Like it's such a mental win for the Phils because the Mets have kind of given them like the heebie-jeebies in the last couple of years. I guess you could say, be a good way
And
to
I
put
just
it.
I
But
just hate them too. I mean,
yeah, they're just annoying. Yeah.
they're just they're kind of like that fly that won't go away
Yep.
sometimes. And they're not really meaningful at all. They're not significant, but they just kind of bother you sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're kind of like the mouse that keeps eating the cheese off the trap.
yeah,
Like
little
they
brother.
just yeah. True. But it's good to see. I mean, it's a huge like they'll be going in tomorrow now feeling good, get out of here tomorrow afternoon and go back to Philly and then play them two more times. So I mean, just kind of probably motivates them a little bit more for tomorrow.
And think about the Mets. I mean, they just played probably one of their cleaner games of the year, and that's got to be demoralizing for them to lose that way because Edwin
Yeah.
Diaz loses command in the ninth inning. And
Yeah. Yeah. He was
we've seen
terrible.
that. Yeah, we've seen that a few times versus the Phillies before. I mean, that's nothing new for us. But
Yeah.
obviously, outside of the Phillies games, he's been pretty good. But I don't know what it is about Edwin Diaz and the Phillies, man. I mean, can't even get Michael Franco out when they play the Phillies. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that was a crazy ninth inning. I mean, Stoddard came through in a big way today. I mean,
Yeah. No doubt.
two big hits in that game, right? I mean, he has obviously the home run to kind of spark the team, but he also has that big sac fly as well. I mean, we don't win that game without him getting that run in the 10th, obviously. And he's 2 for 4 on the day. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
complain about that. He comes around to score both times he's on base. Just a really good game for him all around and really starting to come into his own this year, man. I mean, he had a slow start. He's up to 277 on the year now and an 825 OPS. So obviously
Yeah.
numbers aren't everything, but it's good to finally see him turn the corner numbers wise. And we knew it was going to happen too.
Yeah. And not only like I said for the win, like it's not even like all about the numbers for Stott. It's about how he's feeling, having these like at the beginning of the season, I remember he was hitting balls like in the gaps and they just weren't dropping. And now it's like kind of the opposite. Like seems like everything's getting down. He's hitting the ball hard. And I mean, it's so nice to see because I mean, no doubt he should be in the leadoff spot tomorrow. I mean, he's looked so good and he's kind of earned that. As long as Schwarber's not playing, obviously.
Right.
But if Schwarber's playing, then obviously you can bat him fifth, whatever you want to do. But I mean, it's so nice to see Stock get going, man. He's a huge piece of this team, and I mean, him and Bohm. I mean, they're the two young guys that are going to make a big difference for this team this year, and they're both doing it right now.
Well, you mentioned Schwarber and you mentioned Bohm, so I think it's only right we talk about that ninth inning. On that note, and man, I mean, well, first off on Stott, my buddy Drew from Westchester always says he's a winning player. He really is. I
No
mean,
doubt.
he just
Yeah.
is the guy who he's a guy you want on the baseball field in the biggest moments of the game. And he turned on 97, I think, from Edwin Diaz there to send it out of the park. That's not easy. So shout out to
Yeah.
Stott, man. And as far as that ninth inning goes, something about Boom and getting hit by pitches with bases loaded. I don't know what it is, but
Against elite relievers as well.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully we get one of those relievers who has hit him at the deadline with a better entrance than Edwin Diaz. I'll say it right now. It's going to be better, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, but I mean, yeah, Bohm doesn't do anything today, but has arguably the biggest play of the game there by just, I mean, I don't know if he really had a choice whether to take that pitch in hands or not. He had not really much time to get out of the way. But you know what? He gets a run in there. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So that was big time. Schwarber, I'm not going to kill him. I mean, he comes into the game cold. He hasn't played in a little bit. You probably should have expected that to happen, but at least he didn't ground into double play. I'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been brutal for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention those two guys, but I also wanted to mention, man, I've kind of made fun of the whole Cody Clemens fan club thing because I don't feel it's sustainable, but you got to give him credit. I mean, I can't even, there's nothing else I can say other than that tonight is that's a big time hit in that spot to keep that inning going right after the Stott home run too. You feel a little momentum, right? And that's a big time catch in the next inning too, at second base. So credit to him, man. Multiple winning plays from Cody Clemens tonight.
Yeah. And Clemens, I mean, like you said, it's kind of hard to hate on him at this point because every time he comes up, he does something phenomenal. And this time, he's done a couple phenomenal things. So it's just really encouraging to see these guys coming up from AAA and performing. And I
Right. And
mean,
if that,
Clemens is like Clemens is the 27th guy. Like he's going to be
right.
the guy first up from AAA every single time. So you absolutely need him to be that kind of guy that's going to come up and energize the club a little bit.
Right. And like you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Like if that's your fifth guy off the bench who's going to be sitting in AAA for most of the year, yeah, you'll take that. And honestly, depending on injuries and how things shake out, like I wouldn't rule out him being that left-handed bench bat that they need. Again, I don't know how sustainable it is, but we saw, I mean, Jake Cave barely played in the playoffs last year. Realistically, you're probably not going to need that bat. It'd be nice to have someone a little better than Cody Clemens in that spot long term. But, again, based off of how much they're likely to play, I'm certainly not opposed to him being that guy down the road with how he has played now. I'm willing to say that, even though it's a small sample size, he did this last year too, and it feels very Nick Maton-ish with how
Yeah.
he comes up and provides a spark to the team. So, again, don't know how sustainable it is, but for tonight's game, he is a huge part of the win, and
Yeah.
you got to credit him for that. But I also want to this.
Let me add something to that real quick. And with Clemens, like it's kind of different than last year because we don't have a left-handed bench bat, so he is the first lefty off the bench to pinch hit for Rojas or whoever it's going to be. Because if the other team has a tough lefty in there late in the game, it's not going to be Rojas facing them or tough righty. Sorry, but either way, it's going to be Clemens coming off the bench first, and that's just going to be the way it's going to be. So he's going to get opportunities as long as he's in the big leagues,
Right.
and he's taking advantage of every single one right now. So
Yeah, you would think they'll want a left-handed bench bat by the time the back half of the season comes around, but I guess we'll ultimately see. Time will tell, obviously, and
right.
we'll see if they decide to add one at the deadline. But it's an interesting topic to talk about. But I do want to talk about this too. The Whit Merrifield at bat was very weird to me. It felt like he got a very bad first strike call to me in that bat. Then he gets a makeup call the next pitch, which was painted on the corner, and the ump doesn't give it to him. And then I don't know how the first base umpire calls that a non-check swing, especially with Whit Merrifield's reaction to it. I mean, Whit pretty much says like there with his face, he's like, shoot, that now it's 3-2. And they get the first base. I mean, I was so shocked when I saw him walking down to first base. I really didn't know what had just happened. And if Bohm gets hit there the next at bat, it's bases loaded, and you have, obviously you have Harper coming up, but Harper struck out the next at bat. So, I mean, that really is the difference between a win and a loss is the call that was made. I don't like to say that too often about referees or umpires deciding the game, but they gave the Phillies a real gift there. And I do want to talk about Witt after that, but I just wanted to talk about that too. I mean, that at bat, you had three terrible calls, in my opinion. One was terrible, three not great calls, and the one was just absolutely absurd.
Yeah. It's terrible, really. I mean, there's just no excuse for that kind of stuff, and you should be able to challenge that kind of stuff. That's just crazy, man. I mean, like it's the same scenario as like balls and strikes. You should be able to have some kind of challenge for that. Like even if it's very limited, like you have to have something because that you can't just have the game change like that. And obviously, it worked in our favor this time, and we're still mad about it. Like if that happened against us, we would be mad about it for a week. Like it would just. I don't even know. I'm so disgusted with the umpiring this year. It's been terrible.
Right. And the other thing is, especially with a check swing, it feels like there's just nothing concrete that they go off of to rule it either. It's so subjective where it's like, well, one guy might think does it break home plate? Another guy might think does it just break this imaginary plane? Like, I know it's a judgment call, but it's usually pretty obvious whether a guy goes or not. And that was egregious. So
yeah, and especially when the guy has that kind of body language after the fact, like he's literally telling you, like I swung at that, but like I mean, it's terrible. And like the thing I always think about when it comes to that kind of stuff is like, is that a first base umpire actually paying attention? Like, is he sitting over there watching the butterflies, or is he sitting there watching the check swing? Like in this case, he was watching the butterflies. I don't know. There's no way that was not a check swing, or that was a check swing. Sorry.
Right. And the other part of it too is you really can't tell from first base whether it broke the plane or not because you don't have the angle there. You need the replay angle on that. So, but instead, we're speeding up the game. That'll fix it, right? But
yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Anyway, like don't get me wrong. Like I'm glad it hasn't like these games haven't like bled into my time as much as they did in the past because there were some 5 hour games that would get pretty annoying. But
Yeah.
again, that's where the focus is on the pace of game when there's other things in the game that need to be cleaned up. I'm not saying the check swing thing is urgent, but I don't know. There's some weird things. And did you see that Angel Hernandez thing today? I think it was not today, but it was like the clip of him and when Jeff McNeil was off the bat recently. I
I
forget
don't
if it was
remember.
this year or a little while ago. It might have just shown up on my feed, but I think John Boy posted it. It was like there was like he asked if he still had a timeout in the at
Oh,
bat
right.
because there was like
Yeah.
a disengagement,
Yeah.
and and then Angel Hernandez is like time, like he gives him time for asking if he still had a timeout left, and Jeff McNeil's like, so do I not have a timeout left now? And he's like, nope, and he's like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff McNeil was
it's
just like
crazy.
so disgusted. He just didn't even really say anything. It's terrible, dude. I mean, Angel Hernandez, CB Buckner, and who was
Oh,
the other? Joe West. He was terrible. I mean,
oh,
thank
yeah,
goodness he's gone. I mean, geez, we need to get these
that's
other guys out though. It's
yeah.
like those three guys. Like if you see them, if they're going to be behind home plate in your series that you're watching, you just dread that. Like it's just so bad. Like I mean, the umpire tonight back behind home plate was actually pretty good from what I
Yeah.
saw. He had that bad at bat with Witt there, but he kind of like evened it out a little bit with a missed fastball call, and then he called the outside slider. But I mean, it kind of evened out. Other than that, though, I think he was pretty good. I mean, that's what T Mac and Ben Davis were saying. So
Right. I think up until that point, he didn't have too many mistakes. It's just obviously
yeah,
the umpiring is going to be remembered for what happened in that at bat and not
no
the
doubt.
rest of the game, unfortunately. But yeah, the umpire, like you said, those three you mentioned. I mean, that's the trio right there.
Yeah,
Those guys are the bottom of the barrel, man. And I mean, I've seen too many bad CB Buckner games. Like that guy, that's the one that gets under my skin. I think it's probably just because I have more memories of him umping Phillies games in the past couple of years. The last Angel Hernandez memory I have is the Schwarber one where he throws his helmet down, and we probably had him since then, but that's the one I
yeah,
remember. But I've remembered many CB Buckner calls that have gone against the Phillies and been very aggravated. So
yeah,
anyway, and enough on that topic. Let's talk about the actual game, though. I don't
yeah,
have too much else from that inning. I don't think. I mean, Garrett Stubbs outside of awesome bunt tonight, awesome bunt. But outside
right.
of that, you're not getting anything out of him right now. And
Yeah,
it's honestly been even worse than I think people thought it would be. Like it's been even worse than last year, which was a really low bar to set offensively.
yeah,
And defensively, he hasn't been that great either, to be honest. So
yeah,
losing JT these past couple of days has, I mean, it's really sucked, man. It's really sucked. And this is where when you have to play the backup catcher more than a 1 day game every week, this is where it starts to hurt you.
yeah. And they have no other options. Like Marchand is hurt, and he's the closest. Like the next closest guy to being ready for the major leagues is probably like who was that in spring training? He was going off
Ramos
in spring.
Garcia, and
Right,
apparently
and
he's been terrible in AAA
yeah,
right now.
he's hitting like in the 130s in AAA, and it's terrible. I mean, they have no catching depth at all, and that's largely in part to the Logan O'Hoppe trade a couple years ago, which has obviously worked out well for both sides. But I mean, the Phillies got to do something at backup catcher. I mean, we all appreciate what Garrett Stubbs does as far as vibes and stuff, but there comes a point where you got to draw a line.
Yeah, there's only so many cheerleaders you have room for on the bench, and there should really be room for none, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that. But I certainly wouldn't mind seeing Eduardo Tate right now. I mean, I would throw him into the fire. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
yeah,
And as far as Marchand goes, it's like I'm just for anyone who actually took me seriously there, not being serious. I'm not asking for not even single A guy to be called up right now. He's in rookie ball.
yeah,
So hopefully no one did take that seriously. But sometimes you got to clarify. As far as Marchand goes, and that like he's not a guy who's coming up and filling in for a multi-game sample size and doing well. Like we've seen him do it as a spark for a game or two, but again, there's a reason that he really fizzled out as one of our top prospects, and that's because our farm's gotten better. And unfortunately, he hasn't really been on an upward trend as a prospect the past couple of years. And to your point, it's also because his rhythm's probably been broken because he's been injured so many times too.
yeah.
So yeah, they have nothing there right now, and it's like I mean, if there was any like decent catcher available in free agency right now, they'd be on a team. They wouldn't be sitting there in free agency. So maybe there's a trade they can make for like a really good depth guy in AAA. Maybe there's a trade they can make for a decent backup catcher at the major league level for a team who might have an extra catcher. I don't know. I don't know what that trade looks like. That's something that's just going to have to come like out of nowhere, honestly. But I don't think the Phillies are necessarily going to be looking for it unless something happens to JT long term. And
Yeah.
what happens if JT gets hurt after the deadline and you're screwed? I mean, we're seeing this is something that should maybe be taken as a little bit more of a warning sign, I think. But again, I don't think it's something they're necessarily going to move to address very quickly, which is somewhat unfortunate, but it's
Yeah.
all
And
the lack of market.
yeah, and obviously that would change if JT were to have a more serious injury. Like they would absolutely go out and trade for somebody, no doubt about it. Like a guy that's on a very bad team is Elias Diaz, I believe is his name.
Yeah, at
The
least he
Rockies.
is on the Rockies. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, that would be a good choice. I mean, he's probably going to cost you a little bit, but I mean, you wouldn't have a choice at that point. I mean, you cannot send Stubbs out there every single day. He's not a major league hitter. He's not a major league catcher. I mean, he can throw the ball, but I mean, he's just I don't know. He's not an overall major league player. And I mean, it's fine when he plays one time a week, but it's a totally different game whenever he has to play more than one game in a row.
Right. God forbid, again, like I said, I'll knock on wood right now. JT got hurt after the trade deadline. I really don't know what the answer would be there. That is
Caleb
that's a fright-
Ricketts,
yeah, right. It's a frightening thought. It's a frightening thought, man.
no
But
doubt. Yeah, I mean this kind of should make everybody appreciate JT more because man, is he's sorely missed when he's not in the lineup. It's crazy. I mean, there's very few catchers that are hitting in the top four in a powerful lineup like this. I mean,
right.
there's 3 or 4. I mean, it's so few and far between.
Right. And you talked about Ohapi, so I do want to talk about the guy we traded for him tonight. On base 3 times out of 4. How about Marshy?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't really come around to score or do anything crazy, but just as we kind of move off of the 9th and 10th inning and kind of get into the game here as a whole, he also swiped a couple bags too. Like he put himself in scoring position both times, and that's going to pay off obviously throughout the year at different points. So.
Yep.
Marsh, I mean, he's been a little bit cold lately, so I did want to mention that just because it was good to see him work some strong at bats, get on base there in that last inning. And he was part of that 9th inning too, I believe. I don't think he came around to score, but he did get on base and he moved the runners over just by working a good at bat there. So it was good to see that from him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he's like you said, he's really cooled down over the last 3 weeks, and I mean, it's good to see him have a game like this because it could be a kind of game that gets him like propelled back into that good rhythm that he was in at the beginning of the season. And that kind of player that Marsh was at the beginning of the season totally changes this lineup. I mean, it goes from being deep to very deep because he's hitting usually I think 7th or 8th every single night right in front of Rojas. And I mean, like when Stubbs is playing, he's batting 9th and Marsh is batting 7th. But either way, it lengthens the lineup so much, especially because another guy kind of like segue to this, but Rojas, I mean, he's been so good lately. I mean, he's been hitting the ball like on a line every single time, and it's so nice to see. Even if they're not dropping, I mean, it's so valuable.
Even the one today where it was earlier in the game where he just got the run in and we had 2 guys on base and there was no outs. I mean, put the ball in play. That's all I care. Like that's what I've been complaining about with Merrifield, and I'm so glad Rojas did that and it almost got up the middle for a single too. Like, yeah, I mean, it was a ground out, but he didn't miss it by much is my point. And
and earlier in the game, actually, from where you were just talking about, like Marsh got on and then Rojas went down 0-1 and then Marsh tried to steal. Rojas fouled a couple pitches off and then Marsh stole second. And then Rojas hit a line drive like 100 and some mile an hour to the center fielder. Like it's just so unlucky. But like that kind of contact and that kind of situation is so nice because he's obviously turned a corner offensively a little bit. And as long as he can keep going and we can get Marsh going again, this team's going to keep winning games whether they're missing guys or not.
Right. Yeah, Rojas, what he's doing right now is more than passable, I think.
No doubt.
Obviously, again, the first couple weeks really do affect his slash line a good bit. But since then, he's been fine. Again, I get we're not playing like great competition or great pitching, so that has to be taken into account. Like, I'm not saying he's going to go into the playoffs and suddenly be this better hitter that he is being against some of these teams. But again, the whole point of that is he shouldn't have to be if he's hitting 9th in the lineup. So I do want to
also like, oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Also to like kind of go off of that a little bit, like Rojas. He only had what, like 50 games in the major leagues before the season.
Yeah,
So
not
I
many.
mean, yeah, he's gonna have a full season under his belt, and he's gonna have seen all these good pitchers because he's playing against pretty much every pitcher. I mean, he's
Yep.
playing lefties, righties, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I mean, he's gonna have that full season under his belt by the time playoffs come. So he might be able to hit those playoff pitchers. I mean, it's not like it's out of the question.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. I do want to move it to the top of the lineup because we only had one hit and two walks from them tonight, and we had 6 Ks among those guys,
Yeah,
five of which came from Harper and Castellanos. That's a disappointing night from these guys, man. You need better
yeah,
production out of them. I'm not expecting them to do it every single night. I know Sean Manaea is, we've seen what he can do in the past. I mean, in the past couple of years, he hasn't necessarily been good, but we know what he's capable of. I believe he's having a decent year this year too, so far. And it can be tougher sometimes with a guy who's a little more crafty and likes to mix things up a little bit. I'm not really too familiar with Sean Manaea, to be quite honest. But point being, I mean, regardless of what pitcher's on the mound, I can't have them be completely unproductive like that in their at bats. And there
yeah,
were some poor at bats tonight from the top four, and especially Merrifield. Yeah,
yeah.
I think like Chris said, we've seen enough of that guy at the leadoff spot, whether Schwarber's hurt or whether someone else is hurt too. I don't want to see him in the top two spots in the lineup anymore. Again, you didn't really have a choice with Trey the other day just because that's where we're at right now, and we really are down some guys.
Yeah, it's
He
it's tough
also
right now.
he also kind of cooled off, and some really disappointing at bats tonight too. Like really, just again, there's points where I just need him to come through and put the ball in play. I'm not saying even tonight. It's just there's been times this year where I'm like, why we signed this guy to put the ball in play and make contact with the ball and at least give a runner a chance to advance, and he's not doing that some of the time too.
And
With
even if he is
less
putting the ball
input
in play,
outs,
it's very
it's
weak.
very it's weak contact. It's
Right.
popped up into the air. He's chasing to make contact, not necessarily tonight, but that's I mean, especially at that age, it's like you're getting older now too. That's not going to help your case with making harder contact. So
Yeah.
again, he is to me at best a guy who's coming off the bench in the playoffs. I could see him starting against certain pitchers, but that being mostly lefties. But again, like it's just been disappointing so far. And I know a lot of people don't like the Josh Harrison comparison. I'm not going to take it that far. He's had a much more successful career than Josh. Josh had some good years, but Merrifield was like at the top of the league in some categories in his prime.
Yeah.
But it's been very disappointing so far.
Yeah. I mean, he's been very underwhelming. I mean, he had a couple, like he had a 10-game span there or so that he was playing pretty good.
Yeah.
And he kind of earned that leadoff spot a little bit, but it's kind of to the point now where it's kind of like you're playing yourself out of it. I mean, he's been pretty brutal since he got put up there, to be quite honest with you. I don't think he has a single hit. So, I mean, it's bad. But let me back up like a little bit here and talk about Rojas for a second. Like, this is a very good point. I mean, like, could be a very good, like, not investment, but like a good way to fill that 9 hole in the lineup every night. Like, you don't need a ton out of him, but like he's getting this experience, and like this could definitely pay off, like I said, in the playoffs or even in the future after this year. And I mean, the same way kind of goes for, I saw a tweet about it. I think it might have been Alex Carr, but like Christopher Sanchez tonight, he wasn't good, but they let him battle through it. And that's what you need to do with your young guys. Like, you can't just, as soon as you start showing signs of missing the spots and all that, you can't just pull them, because you need these guys to learn and develop and have these experiences. Because Sanchez, I mean, last year he was pretty dominant when he came up. I mean, he had a rough start to the year and then he got sent down. So, but I mean, you need to keep these guys playing, and you need to not just take the reins away from them right away.
I'm glad you mentioned Sanchez. That was where I was going to go next. And he has had a rough stretch of starts since his good start to the season. And tonight's a night where I don't care that he put 10 runners on base, whatever, yada, yada, yada. The way he fought out of that third inning and then finished the outing is what is the thing I'll take away from this game. Again, sometimes you're not going to have it that night. And that goes for Rojas too. Like, there could be a night where Rojas is 0 for 5 with 5 Ks, but if he comes through in the 10th inning with a RBI single to win it and he's 1 for 6, that's all you're going to remember. And granted, other things Christopher Sanchez has to get better on, obviously. Yeah, I'm not excusing him from those things that he needs to get better on, but it's just you've seen what he can do at his peak, and you need to keep riding it out with him and let him figure it out in some of these
Yeah.
spots, which again, like you said, they let him do that tonight and it proved to be a positive because
Yep.
that could have very well been a situation where they let him try to figure it out and he implodes and they say, all right, well, we can't do that again because you can't afford to just lose games like this in the regular season in the third inning, right? You
Yep.
can't just take yourself out of a game. But he came through with a big strikeout there to end that inning. I think maybe a couple, but huge outing from him to just fight through that and fight through what was not a very impressive start, or he didn't have his best stuff.
Yep.
And the bullpen again, once again, like yesterday, the bullpen picked up their starting pitcher.
Yeah. And like you said about Sanchez, it was a rough start, and he threw a metric ton of pitches in the first 3 innings. I mean, he had like 70 pitches after 3 innings or 60 something. So, I mean, to battle and get through almost 6 innings, that's just absolutely massive. I mean, he really came through tonight because, I mean, they, quite frankly, they've used the bullpen a lot in the last couple of days, and they needed the length. I mean, because Spencer Turnbull was not available to piggyback with him tonight, and I think that was one of the main reasons. Obviously, they let him go a little bit, but like you said, it really turned into like a positive thing for him because he went out there and he kind of dominated the last couple innings.
Sure, and he throws 108 pitches tonight. I mean, I
Yeah,
would I'm not even gonna guess. I'm gonna just straight up say that's definitely gotta be the most pitches he's thrown in a professional baseball game, at least in a long time. So
right.
that's very good to see. And like you said, the bullpen really did back him up tonight, and they've been used a lot the last couple days, and they've mostly done their job. I mean, again, Soto gets a bad bounce yesterday, and he gets put into a tough spot too, where he was just the only guy available really in that situation there. Other
Yeah,
guys have been used in the game. Other guys have been used the past couple days. I'm not going to get on him for that. Soto really hasn't been great this year, but he did have a nice couple thirds of an inning or I think it was 2/3 of an inning. And
yeah.
look, he did his
And
job.
I believe he was on the mound when Bone made that error as well, right?
That's a good question.
When JD Martinez hit that ball down the line.
Yeah, I believe so because I think because Sir Anthony came out and then Soto came in, and yeah, that's another bad break when Soto's on the mound. I mean, again, it doesn't go against
Yeah,
his line, but it's like,
yeah.
what are you supposed
So
to do
like
there?
he rolled a double play and it became a run instead of any outs. Like
Right?
it's unlucky. But I
Yeah,
mean, Soto's been okay. I mean, he's had some really rough outings and he's had some really good outings. I mean, like tonight he was actually pretty good,
yeah,
but he just kind of got hurt by his defense, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. I mean, Bohm, you can't fault him at all for having one bad play. I mean, he's been a positive fielder on the year, so it's just kind of crazy.
yeah.
But
That's
I mean,
a tough play to make too. I mean, it's right.
yeah,
It looked like it started foul, honestly, and kind of came back fair as well. And he
yeah,
also made an incredible throw earlier in the game to get a guy out from pretty much the farthest point of third base. Maybe not Manny Machado range, but I mean,
yeah,
pretty close to it. And he gets a guy out at third. I mean, he's got an absolute laser from third base.
yeah. He's been quite the revelation at third base
Yeah.
since the beginning of last year. I mean, from where he was at this point last year to where he is now, it's like you don't see that. I mean, it doesn't happen, and it's happened for him, and he's kind of just it's carrying over. Like I said in the last pod, it's carried over to his offense. Like his offense has been unbelievable this year, and I think it's a large part because he has confidence from playing the field so well.
And we said that about his fielding the year before, from
Yeah.
that year to last year, too.
Yep.
So the improvement there is very, very respectable. The defensive metrics don't necessarily love him for whatever the reason, and understandable, he doesn't have the best range, but I think he makes up for that in other departments. And I believe this year the defensive metrics have loved him a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah.
it seems like he's finally getting recognized for his improvement there from the advanced stat department. And I also kind of skipped over Sir Anthony when talking about the pen. Still a little shaky tonight, put some runners on, and obviously led to that situation. Do think his slider has looked a little bit better recently, like over the past week or so. Not enough for me to say I trust him as, the second or third right-handed option behind Hoffman, which I think is again where they're lacking right now. But outside of him, I mean, I thought the rest of the bullpen was just lights out after him and Soto, I should say. And even you could include Soto in that too. After
Yeah.
Sir Anthony, I felt like it was just no trouble at all. I mean, it was only the error when Soto was in, which is not his fault. So those guys just shut it down from Soto to Ruiz to Kerkering to Alvarado. And we'll talk about the last two guys specifically. We talked about them before the stream started. Those guys did their job tonight, man. And again, as much as it is some of those clutch hits and clutch plays from the offense in the ninth and 10th inning and clutch from Christopher Sanchez to go deeper into the game, you can never complete a comeback without, and again, not really a big comeback, but a comeback nonetheless. You can't complete a comeback without your bullpen holding it down the rest of the night.
Yeah, another night where the bullpen has 0 earned runs. I mean, it's been quite the run they're on. I
It's
mean,
almost like people overreacted the first 2 games. Who would have thought?
yeah, I mean, the back end of this bullpen is absolutely the best back end in baseball. I mean, they have 4 legit options in Kerkering, Strom, Alvarado, and Hoffman. I mean, there's almost no other team that has that good of a bottom 4 in the bullpen. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. And kind of want to talk about a guy that didn't pitch tonight that I just talked about, Matt Strom. Man, that guy is just unbelievable. I mean, hasn't allowed a run since opening day. That is crazy. He's been not walking guys. I mean, I think he has 1 walk or something like that in his last 16 outings, which is just phenomenal. I mean, that guy has been worth every single penny they paid him,
Oh,
even though
man.
people questioned it at the beginning, like, what are we doing? And man, he's making them look like fools right now.
I just wanted to say this has been a very pro Matt Strom podcast from the time he signed too. You can go back and fact check me if you want, but and I know Drew liked him even before he was on the pod as well. So Matt Strom is definitely a fan favorite of this podcast, and I was a little I was a little uneasy after that opening day outing. I was like, oh shoot, people are going to get on me about Strom now because people like I felt like last year people hated on him for no reason sometimes when he had like one bad outing. And again, I felt like a lot of it was him. He was just asked to do a lot last year, and he
Yeah,
did probably 3 different roles throughout the season, maybe more. But he's been so good for them. And honestly, I said it on Twitter the other day. I think him and Hoffman have a strong case for an all-star appearance with how they're
no
pitching right now.
doubt.
Again,
Yeah,
we'll see. It's always weird with how they select the pitchers sometimes. But if they keep up the pace they're at, which is going to be really tough, but if they do it, yeah, you could definitely see them get in there. And I would guess Matt Strom has probably a similar amount of innings to the other guys who are in consideration for it too. He's not a guy that takes nights off or gets hurt really. He got hurt. I think he did get hurt last year, but he's been fairly healthy, I think, to start this season. So
yeah.
I would expect he's around the same marks that the other relievers are at. And you can bet his numbers are, as far as usage, yeah, his numbers are probably similar, but his numbers are probably better than a lot of those guys too. So
Yeah.
he's been unbelievable, man.
Yeah, I always compare him to Josh Hader, and he's been miles better than Josh Hader this year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, like, it's not always a good idea to pay guys a ton of money coming out of the bullpen. Like Josh Hader's kind of proving that this year because guys in the bullpen are so volatile, and like you kind of got to pick and choose who you give a bunch of money to. And the
Yeah.
Phillies have mostly hit the nail on the head. I mean, the Alvarado, or not the Alvarado, the Dominguez contract is kind of like, a little iffy, but I mean, if that's the worst one, I mean, that's really good. I mean,
Right.
Matt Strom, he's been insane out of the bullpen, and he's been worth every penny.
And people can criticize the Soto trade if they want. They gave up again. Keep saying it. They gave up Matt Vierling and Nick Maton to make that trade.
Yeah,
That doesn't hurt you in the slightest. And if Soto can figure it out over the rest of this year and next year, then it's worth it. And even if not, again, it was low risk. Like you said, you think about all the deals they've made for the guys in the pen. I mean, the Alvarado one worked out pretty darn well. That's been
yeah,
good. And we talked about this before the stream started. He got up to, I think he was 99.9, so he's right around 100 by that last batter. That was
yeah,
encouraging. He was below 97 at one point a day or two ago, and man, that was very like there was some alarm, like there was some like I was kind of like my hand was near the panic button, and then it was getting close to the panic button, and then when that happened, like the alarms were sounding.
yeah,
But then tonight kind of eased my concerns, and I don't know, maybe he's just kind of conserving for the playoffs this year. Maybe that's part of it. I would certainly hope that's the case. I would not be shocked if he has an IL stint at some point this year. It seems like that happens with him. It happened with him twice last year too. Maybe something's still bothering him. I don't know, but that was encouraging to see as well. And again, he's been mostly fine this year, I would say, outside of the velo concerns.
yeah. I mean, he's had a couple rough outings, but outside of that, I mean, like he's been pretty good considering he's been battling with lower velo. And if he can do what he did tonight, velocity wise, I mean, that's the Jose that's one of the 5 best relievers in baseball. I mean, it's just if he has that 99 mile an hour fastball and that 95 mile an hour cutter, I mean, one, strike 2, good luck. I mean, there's just that's exactly what it is, and that's a perfect phrase for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I really don't have much else to say on the bullpen. I think you made a great point there with Sir Anthony's extension too. And again, like like you said, if that's your worst one and that's a guy who's at worst like a coin flip, okay, I think we're going to be okay. The Strom
Yeah.
extension looks very good right now, and it's basically the same deal, just again, if I
Yeah.
remember it correctly. Kirk Ring's a pre-arb guy; he costs you nothing. Everyone in that bullpen, man. Hoffman was an absolute steal. They got to extend him, man. I mean, the
Yeah.
more he pitches, the more I get worried that he's going to hit the market, and
Yeah.
I do think he loves it here, but you don't want to let it get to the offseason, honestly. Like, I don't know if Hoffman just kind of wants to focus on the season right now. I just you need him back. You
Yeah.
need him back in
I
the
mean,
pen. You need to get that extension done.
if you offer him 2 years, 20 million, I mean, he's probably going to take it, right? Like, I mean, that's it's worth it. I mean, he's one of the best right-handed relievers in baseball. I mean, he's
Yeah.
probably been the best so far this year. I mean, I don't know, maybe Mason Miller, obviously. I guess I can't really say that. But I mean, like, if you're even in the conversation with a guy like Mason Miller right now, that's incredible. And Jeff Hoffman's been every bit of that.
Right, and we talked about Helsley on the pod, and Robert Suarez from the Padres is probably up there too. He's been pretty incredible.
Right.
So there's a couple of guys, but like Hoffman's numbers they're right there with the best of them.
Yeah.
He's been awesome this year. But I did want to mention one guy we didn't talk about who, while we talk about Witt not playing so well, Sosa has played pretty well while he's been asked to play the last couple of days. And obviously, you take him out tonight. I get it, righty lefty, that stuff. Sosa's really a guy I want out there when there's a lefty on the mound. He's one of the guys, like, I'm not upset when he's in the lineup over someone else. I prefer it's not Stott. I really think Stott should play every day, but I get it. Like, you do need to get these guys through 162, so they're going to take their opportunities, especially early in the season, to give Stott days off. No matter who Sosa's played for, man, he's been really good to start this year. And again, a guy who we've seen what happens over a longer sample size. Like, he's not meant to be a starter, but in these short spurts and in these types of situations and with tryout, him and Witt can rotate. And I think him being in more, I think honestly, Witt, we talked about him being in a reduced role would help him. I think for Sosa, it's honestly kind of helped him not being an everyday player and not having that, like, giving that prolonged look to pitchers, or, they kind of have to adjust game to game. Like, a pitching staff doesn't know if it's going to be Witt or Sosa out there one day or another. And I think that's been kind of a benefit to Sosa as well, as has the splits lefty righty with him since he's gotten to Philadelphia. But yeah, he's been really good to start this year. I just wanted to give him his shine. He's had multiple extra base hits while he's been here too. He had a good game tonight. He's been good at shortstop when he's been asked to play there too. Obviously, that's his more natural position, which not ideal. You'd like him to be able to play third base, but that's been a major issue for him in Philadelphia. So whatever,
Yeah.
that is what it is. He's been good though, and you got to give him his credit for what he's done so far. It's the only guy I think we kind of missed from the lineup that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of hit it on the head there. We kind of forgot to talk about him, and that's kind of shame on us because, I mean, he's kind of been saving us since Trey's been down. I mean, he has a 940 OPS or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, he's been so good. And like you said, he plays a better shortstop than Trey probably. So,
Oh, definitely.
I mean, like it's crazy. I mean, he's really, really been saving the Phils, and he's kind of been rewarding Rob Thompson for putting him out there every day.
Yeah. Great find by Dombrowski. That trade really
man.
came out of nowhere at that deadline, man. Because I remember going to that deadline. I'm like, all right, we need to go get a center fielder, and we got to go get a reliever and possibly a starting pitcher. Like, I'm like, we got three needs, and the first move they make is 3 days before the deadline. I'm like, well, I don't know who Sosa is, but his baseball savant page looks pretty nice, so he might be a good depth piece. And he's definitely been more than I think he was expected to be since he was traded for. And that's all you can ask for. Obviously, Jojo Romero has had a little bit of an insanity run in St. Louis, so that is what it is. You can't worry about that, but he really didn't have a spot in this bullpen or in this rotation. So you take what you're getting from Sosa right now, and that's been a really positive piece for the Phillies over the past year or so, just to have him off the bench.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, he's also another one of those guys, kind of like Stubbs. Like, he's such a good clubhouse guy. Like, everybody loves Sosa. That's kind of funny to say, but I mean,
everyone does. There's a select group of people who does too. But.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You might have to look up the song if you want to know who it is. But I mean, it's been such a good trade for the Phils. I mean, Jojo Romero, he's never going to amount to anything as far as like being a back end reliever or anything like that. So, I mean, I'd love to see him do it because Jojo Romero is electric. But I mean, he hasn't really proven himself on the mound yet. I mean, it's just unfortunate for him. But I mean, Sosa, he's been super good for the Phils.
Yeah, and the Cardinals are also 16-24 and 2-8 in their last 10. So even if he pitches out of his mind, that the rest of the team isn't really there right now.
Man,
So
Paul Goldschmidt, that's disastrous.
yeah, yeah, that downfall from from the start of last year, that needs to be studied, man, because that was a team that was supposed to contend probably into the NLCS every October. I mean,
It's
granted,
crazy.
the Braves and Dodgers do exist, but they haven't even made it to the NLCS the past couple seasons. So
Yeah.
there were prime opportunities, and I don't know what happened there, man. But hey, another team that is going to be sellers, and we'll take that any day of the week, because the more sellers, the more options there are.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't really have anything else to cover at this point on this.
Yeah, no, I think we covered everything from the game tonight. I don't think there's really been any. We talked Thursday, I think, so it
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
been that long. I mean, there's not really much to say from the Marlins series. Tough loss yesterday. I think there were some little things that it came down to ultimately. Like Sosa's bunt was terrible. Went right back to the pitcher, and Stock gets thrown out of third. Boom has a really poor AB late in the game, and Wheeler just didn't have it yesterday. He
yeah,
hasn't pitched well with Stubbs behind the plate for whatever reason. Obviously, we can't know without being inside the building, but that seems to be a trend. And those were really the three things that stuck out to me from yesterday's loss. They were frustrating, but you're not going to win every game. You're going to drop
no,
some of
yeah,
those. And it took the Marlins probably playing one of their best games to beat us. And we absolutely we owned them the first two games. Like, it was not even a question. But that's really
yeah,
the only other thing I would say from the last time we talked to now.
yeah. I mean, you can't sweep every single series against bad teams. I mean, they win 60 or 70 games out of the year. I mean, you're going to be one of them eventually. I mean, you're not going to escape it forever. But I mean, the Phils have played exceptionally good against these bad teams so far. So there's no reason to panic about what happened yesterday. So
Yeah. Phillies used to be one of those bad teams, and they still won 50, 60 games a year,
yep,
sometimes 70. So, there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be those games that those teams just win. It's even the Marlins, who only have 11 of 43 games won this year. So it is what
yep,
it is. But looking forward, 3 games against the Mets this week. We'll see how those go. I would really prefer to sweep this series. I will be a little upset if they lose one of these games, just because I can't stand the fans, and I can't stand the Mets, and I can't stand them trying to buy their way to a World Series a couple years ago. And I just love seeing their downfall. I would love to just basically take them out of the race right now and just sweep them and say, nope, you guys are going to be 19-24 at the end of the series. Go join the Cardinals, get in the back of the line right now. I hate
yep,
that team, man. I mean, the Mets aren't even that good. The rivalry's not even been that crazy in my lifetime, at least. Well, at least the past 10 years or so. But I hate them. I really do hate the Mets, man. I think part of it's the Knicks thing too right now. That team really aggravates me as well. But Mets fans they're a special breed. We'll put it at that. We'll leave it at that. But
yep,
I would love to win these next 3 games, man. I don't care who's on the mound. I don't care if, like, I get it. Like, you are probably going to lose one of these games. I want to win all 3. I want all.
yeah. What are the pitching matchups for the next 3 games?
It's a good question. So tomorrow is going to be Nola versus. I honestly don't know a lot of these Mets players anymore. Jose Buto,
Boto,
um,
yeah.
and then the
And then
next
after
day,
that, it is Ranger versus Adrian Hauser. Is that who that
yeah,
is?
yeah, that should be
And
a
then
win, I would think.
if it's not, we have a problem.
Yeah,
But
because Quintana versus Taiwan Walker in the last game. That'll
that's a
certainly
toss
that
up.
Yeah, that'll be a roller coaster ride. I think that's the best way to put that game.
Yeah,
Um,
but I mean, you got to win 3 out of the next, 2 out of the next 3. Sorry, my fault.
yeah,
We already won one, but I mean, you got to win 2 out of these next 3. I mean, if you lose the Taiwan game, it is what it is. But they seem to win every time he touches the rubber. So you got to just focus on winning the other 2 first, I guess, because Taiwan's
right.
like got what's that magic called? But he's got something going on.
Yeah.
he pitches terrible and they win games. So
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. And also should be noted, like, the next time you see this team is in London, and
yeah,
with travel and everything and just the festivities, and like, it's easy to get caught up in that. Like, you just
yep,
don't know what that weekend's going to look like. So ideally you just take care of business against the Mets now, so that regardless of what happens in that series, you can say, all right, well, we did what we were supposed to do versus the Mets to start this season. Right.
yeah.
And I thought I had something else to say, but oh yeah, Dulcimros with the comment here too. Yeah, what this guy? I don't know what it is with this guy against the Phils. I mean, him and I'm trying to think. There's a couple other guys too. Like, it's
Yeah,
frustrating, man. They never seem to be able to outside. I mean, in the wild card series, they took care of Josh Bell for the most part, but they never seem to be able to shut this guy down. I mean, he always does something against the Phils at some point. Just
yeah.
frustrating.
I mean, when you swing for the fences 24/7, it's kind of like Kyle Schwarber. You're going to hit one out every once in a while, but I mean, you're going to strike out a ton as well. And Josh Bell, he's just a bad player. I mean, he's been bad for a few years now, and he just kills the Phils sometimes for whatever reason, I guess.
Yeah, I think my buddy said it well, Ian, the other day. He said if Josh Bell played every career game against the Phillies, he'd probably be an all-star.
Yeah, he'd be the next Babe Ruth. Actually, kind of crazy.
Yeah, I really don't know what it is. But anyway, like you said, I don't really think we have much else to talk about. We just want to give a shout out to some people in the chat here. Jose, welcome in. Ethan, like you guys said, just a great night. Love to see it.
Yep.
Robert in the chat, Soli as well. Appreciate you recognizing the hoodie. Thank you very much. Little G. Chris O'Donnell, Star Wars. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And again, Drew posted the Discord in the chat, so make sure you guys go join up in the Discord if you haven't. We love talking Phils with you guys there, and that's probably why a lot of you guys are here right now because you were notified from the Discord that we were going live. So we thank you guys for being in the Discord. It's going to be fun, and yeah, we got a fun rest of the month here for the Phils. But again, it's a marathon, not a sprint, so a lot of ground to cover for this Phils season remaining. Anything you want to say, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, any games you can get with this lineup that we're putting out there every day. I think I said this to you before we went live, but anytime you can win games with a lineup like we had tonight, I mean, it's like 2 wins. I mean, it's like stealing wins basically because we're down so many guys right now, big guys, I should say. I mean, we have most of the regulars, but a couple of the big guns are out, so it's tough to score runs sometimes. And anytime you can come out of one of these games with a win is definitely huge.
Also, I do have to give a shout out to the Mets. They absolutely stole a win from the Braves on Sunday Night Baseball last night.
Yes, they did.
And we are thankfully now we are 2 games still ahead of the Braves. We didn't lose any ground yesterday. So that was hilarious to see AJ Minter melt down. I mean, that's just a guy who's felt unstoppable at times against the Phillies. And for him, of all people, to melt down in that moment against the Mets, oh, that was sweet. That was really sweet. I think Brandon Nimmo had the walk-off, if I'm not mistaken. So that was fun. Anyway. But that's
we
all
also, I think we shut Nimmo down tonight. That's he's kind of killed us in the past, so that's definitely good to see. Yeah. But I mean, go in these next 3, we're all going to be happy about it. I mean, hopefully Mets fans are in their bed crying right now. I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say is like while we already complained about the umpires and like did admit it's a terrible call, there's nothing better than the Mets fans being the ones upset about it. So
no doubt,
if that's going to be the outcome, hey, I'll take a bad call all day. I mean, I love seeing the Mets fans aggravated like that. But anyway, yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point. So that's all I got, Drew. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
Nope, I'm all good. Everybody have a great night. Enjoy the next 3 games. Let's get this 4-game sweep.
Yeah.
Be great.
Thank you, guys. Go Phils. God bless y'all. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.